Hello, this is Morgan Coffin, and you're listening to Coffin Time. Today we'll be reading an excerpt from the ongoing series, Tumbleweed. This is Everything Went Numb, Part 4. Get up! Harry's left ear rings as it burns swollen and red. A steady stream of warm fluid pours down from his nose, over his inflated lip and into his mouth. It tastes like dirty rebar, just there at the tip of his tongue. A sharp split in his brow leaks blood, and everything he sees from his left eye is tainted red. You gonna talk like a man, you gonna walk around like you all grown up, but when it comes time that you need to start acting like you are, you're crying in the corner. The only light in the house beams straight down at the center of the kitchen and just hangs there, suspended from the ceiling, still swinging from when Harry's father hit it with his head. The room is colorless and stark. Dust sparkles as it flits around his towering form. A bottle of Tennessee whiskey sits firmly in his hand with little smears of Harry's blood on it. I barely touched you. Get up. Harry shakes, propped up against the wall, trying to pull himself up. He reaches over to the kitchen chair and grips it to keep from falling back down. He puts all 135 pounds of himself into it. His father's boots pound as he comes to throw that weight across the room. Harry doesn't even touch the ground before his shoulder makes war with the steel refrigerator door to see which would crumble first. The answer is both. By the time he finally hits the craggy wooden floorboards, he's ready to cry. He pushes the tears back down into his sinuses and swallows them with a helping of blood and snot. His father sweeps everything off the kitchen island with a broad stroke of his arm and a guttural roar, sending everything from wooden spoons and knives to a cheese grater and a coffee maker in Harry's direction. It all clatters onto the ground in one horrendous cacophony. If I knew you were going to turn out to be like this, I'd have called you Harriet. Maybe you should have. Harry spits blood out onto the wood as he hunches himself up and grips his ribs with one hand. What'd you say? His father's chin recedes as his crown perks up with his small, round ears. He snorts. The fuck you say to me? Said, maybe you should have called me Harriet. His father's boots pound toward him and one comes up to kick him straight into the fridge. A bark and a snarl barrel down the hallway into the kitchen before a big black German shepherd sinks her teeth into his calf and wrenches it off to one side, toward the cabinets. The giant comes crashing down, and before he knows anything, Harry's on top of him, swinging his fist into his face as hard as he can. After a few good hits, he feels a snap in the back of his hand, and he flinches. Harry expects to see his father get up and finish the job, but he doesn't. He just lays there, kind of convulsing like he got the wind knocked out of him. The pain in Harry's arm is tremendous. Like a screwdriver had pierced in through the webbing between his pinky and ring finger and gone all the way up into his forearm and out of his elbow. He falls back and leans against the cabinets. Ruth growls and whimpers towards Harry's father, patting her paws on the floorboard and bobbing back and forth. Harry looks back at his father, who's staring straight up into the light, his blue eyes wide as can be as he lurches like a fish out of water. One prong of a carving fork juts out of the front of his neck, while the other one doesn't quite poke through and looks like a teepee of flesh. There doesn't seem to be any blood. Not yet. Harry sits there with his hand pinned between his ribs and his thigh. He pets Ruth with the other as she whimpers and puffs air out of her nose before shaking her head. He watches as his father dies. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't feel anything. He doesn't wonder if he should. Harry tries to move, but he can't. At least, he can't tell if he can. He doesn't know if he's sitting or standing or lying down. Everything's gone numb. Existing within a black void at the edge of the universe, he thinks about the blood he can't taste that's surely filling his mouth right now. His mind slips in and out of awareness, shifting to the cast he wore on his arm in second grade and all the kids who signed it, to the golden fields where his mom had been buried, to the kiss in those same fields and how he got caught by his father, to the note about the jewelry store and the 23 before it, to Ruth and how they put her down the day they found his father, to how this time the job felt wrong, and finally to his father's stupid, choking face as he laid there and died like a pussy. Then something in his ear shrieks like someone had sliced open the drum and screamed right into his cochlea. Adrenaline shoots out from his core and radiates throughout his body, bringing feeling into his shoulders and hips and then out into his limbs before trickling down into his fingers and toes. He screams, but not out loud. His eyes come not into focus, but something before it. Something blurry. Harry notices that he can see the sky, or at least something dark blue. A slim black figure stands over him and mutters something muffled. There are trees, Something smells like a tire fire. Harry tries to turn his head to look left, but stops as a shooting pain springs up through his shoulder and into the base of his skull. He tries blinking. It doesn't help. The figure comes closer and kneels down, just enough to come into focus. The bottom half of her face is covered with a black bandana with the head of a bald eagle printed on the nose. Her hair is jet black and her almond eyes are almost as dark. She has olive skin and looks to be in her 20s. Can you feel your feet? Harry hears but doesn't answer. He just counts all the places that it hurts. The woman makes a quick jerking motion and suddenly it's his foot that hurts the most. He lurches up and looks at it. A knife pokes a couple centimeters into the skin right above his big toe. She stabbed him. Good, she says. She grabs him by the collar of his Kevlar vest and picks him up into a sitting position against the bumper of the flipped car. Harry looks at the ground to his right where he notices a body protruding out from under it. The head bloodied and mangled with hair sticking wildly out from under a marred fox mask. Jill. He must have been the one in the trunk with him. Harry looks around for Jack. There are two people standing behind the woman who's now waving a flashlight into Harry's eyes. The two are brandishing assault rifles and wearing makeshift urban fatigues. Beyond them is another car, smashed in on one side by a giant armored truck still lodged on the passenger side. Another soldier, are they soldiers? Comes around the car, dragging someone on their knees. Their head is covered in a burlap sack. Jack. These guys really didn't want to be recognized, huh? The soldier says as he sits her down on her knees in the dirt and takes off the bag to reveal the rabbit mask. He pulls off the mask, too. What's your name? Says the woman in Harry's face. He mutters, Rich, as he kind of chuckles and stares over to Jack, bewildered. Jack is only about 16 years old by Harry's guess, a year younger than himself. He'd figured the pair would be older. The woman nods and stands up before walking over to Jack. She kicks her lightly with her boot and asks her the same question. What's your name? Jack sobs with a mixture of dry and wet tears on her face. Heather, she says. Heather Kent. A gunshot and a splatter, and then Jack thuds onto the ground, limp. Harry's eyes widen as his heart races. Wrong answers only, the masked woman says. Burn the wreck. It needs to look like an accident. You, help me get the other one in the truck. He might be useful. Boot falls crunched through the dirt and Harry takes a deep breath just before a wooden rifle stock cracks against his skull. He goes back into the nothingness, none the richer.